Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's lesson, we're going to talk about how to take a basic chord progression like this and turn it into something really special like this. So today we're going to give you guys 3 tools to take everyday ordinary chord progressions and turn them into something really special. Okay, let's jump into the lesson. If you guys want a paper copy to help follow along, you can grab that over on my Patreon page or on the tab store. I'll put links either above or in the video description below. We're going to be using the D'Angelico Bedford, very cool guitar, and we're going to be recording our tones straight into the computer via Moore's Preamp Live. All right, let's jump in and look at example number 1. So we have a 1, 4, 6, 5 progression, one of the most common progressions in all of modern Western music, used in countless songs. So this is going to be really important to figure out how to take this, sort of really ubiquitous chord progression and turn it into something special, something unique, something that maybe more expresses what you want to say about it rather than just regurgitating that progression, right? So here's the progression. So we're going to use our 3 techniques to take these chords and turn them into something a little bit more interesting. So the first concept we're going to cover is chord inversion. So we're going to take our E major chord and we're going to reorder the notes or invert it. So our E major chord has an E, a G sharp, and a B, and when you play all 6 strings, you're just playing them in a different order. So you'll be playing E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. So only 3 notes, but you're playing 6 strings, right? So what we're going to do is take the middle chord, that G sharp, and we're going to put it on the bass note. So instead of playing our E bass, we're going to play a G sharp. And this is really important because it leads, this G sharp really leads into the next chord. It has a really strong pull into that A. Much stronger than the regular E major. Right? So very different. Okay, so that's our first concept that we're going to cover, and as we look through these 3 examples of chord progressions, we're going to use the concept of inversion a few times and in a few different ways so that you guys have some idea of how to use them in a practical way. So here we go. Now instead of just playing our A2 or regular A major, we are going to play it in a different form. So we're going to use our thumb on 5th string, and then your middle finger is going to play the major 3rd, and then your index finger here is going to play the 5th. So, and then we're going to add the high 9, the B. And that just takes that A chord and really, really opens it up. Okay, and this is a voicing that I use quite often. So here's what it looks like again. Now, if you want to strum the whole thing, what you're going to have to do is mute the 5th string with your thumb, and you're going to have to mute the 4th string with your middle finger. So these 2 strings need to get muted, and this is why it's more of an intermediate lesson, because those techniques take a little while to get, refined. So if you wanted to strum the whole thing without those ones ringing, that advanced muting comes into play. So try it. Just take the chord away, build it, take the chord away, build it, take the chord away, build it. This is a great way to kind of get your muscle memory around that chord. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just take that 9 and you can either play it back to the root note, that high A, or do a pull off. Either way is fine. Okay, so far we have our E over G sharp, and then we move up to that A9. Okay, now our next chord was just a straight bar chord, the C sharp minor. Okay, what we're going to do is play it up higher, and this is where our second kind of theme or second, technique or tool that you guys can use to make your chords more interesting comes into play, and that is using the scale underneath the chord. So the C sharp minor, we're going to play up on 9th fret here, and the corresponding pentatonic is just your position 1 in your minor. Okay, So we're going to play the chord, and then we're going to do a little lick off the minor pentatonic. Okay, so here it goes. And that's it. Oh yeah, sorry, it's on your second and third strings. Okay, so we're going to bar 9, play a little double stop, hammer on to 11, back to 9, back to 11. Okay, so we'll go. Okay, and when we put those 3 together so far, we have our E over G sharp, our A9, and then we go up to C sharp, and then we end with a B major. And this is very similar to the A9 that we used, only it's going to be a straight major. So we're not going to add the 9th in this case, but the fingering will be exactly the same. So thumb on 7, and then 8, 7, 7. Or B, D sharp, and F sharp. Okay, and then we're going to use our concept of inversion again, and in sort of bar chords up high, and we're going to play that B in D form. So here, I'll bring it, my fingers more into focus here. What we're going to do is this is going to be an inversion. We have B, D sharp, and F sharp. So again, this is a first inversion chord because we're taking the third of the chord and putting it as our root. So we're going to go from B in this style, which is really just your E form chord, up to your high D form chord. Okay, so here's the whole progression again, really slow. See if you can play it along with me. Up to C sharp minor, and then B, and then high B, and then the whole thing. Okay, so far in example number 1, we've looked at the concept of chord inversion. We used the concept of alternate chord voicings. So in other words, taking basic chords by your nut and actually moving them up and down the neck. And we talked about adding melodic elements from the chords themselves. So in other words, finding out which scales go underneath the bar chords. So let's look at example number 2. We're going to use those same 3 concepts and take a basic chord progression and make it something special. Okay, so there's another really common chord progression. This is a 1, 6, 5, 4. So 1, 6, 5, 4. A really common chord progression. So let's talk about how we can kind of make this a little bit more interesting. So what we're going to do so far is we're going to use some chord inversions, but this time we're going to sort of play them in a melodic way. So here we have our G chord. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play the G again. Slide up to 7th fret, which is a B, and then have your D, E, D. Okay, so. And that just comes from taking your G chord and inverting it. Okay, I'll play that one more time. Okay, and then we have our E minor was our next chord, and we're going to play that as a bar chord up here. We're going to play an E minor 7. And then again, we're going to use the chord scale, or in this case, the pentatonic scale that goes underneath this minor chord. And that's... Okay, if you know your pentatonics, I'm assuming that you guys do, that's the pentatonic position that goes underneath an A form minor chord. So in this case, we're going to go... Okay, so we've used our inverted concept for the G chord, but just played in a melodic way. Okay, and that's just your pentatonic scale, a little lick. Then we're going to play our D chord comes next, and we're going to play that as a bar chord. Okay, and then we're going to invert the bar chord. Okay, so when you invert an A form bar chord, what you do is you take your index finger and replace these 3 notes. And then you take your ring finger and play on the 5th string. Okay, so you go from this, then you go to the major 3rd. So you might just want to practice that. Really common in music, especially in blues styles and Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all that kind of stuff. John Mayer. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. We're going to play our D chord. But again, instead of just doing a straight inversion, we're going to do a little melodic lick. Okay. So far we have our G chord. Okay, and then we're going to go to a C first inversion. So normally our C bar chord would be right here on 3rd fret, 3s and 5s. But what we're going to do is take our index finger to play the 5s and then play a 7 right here. So C over E. Okay, and then we're going to end with 2 high 8s. So here's the whole thing, nice and slow. All right, let's take our 3 concepts of chord inversion, alternate voicings, and using melodic elements over top of chords and apply it to another really basic chord progression. So for example 3, we're going to be using a C, G, A minor, and F chord progression. Again, a really common chord progression. Here's what it sounds like when we add a few creative elements. Now when we compare a progression like that, as opposed to just your basic strumming progression, the differences are quite stark. All right, let's launch into example number 3 and break down exactly what we're doing. So instead of playing a straight C major chord, we're going to use our alternate version of a bar chord. Okay, and we're going to play 2 root notes and then we're going to play the rest of the chord. So it's going to sound like this. Okay, so we're just going to break up the chord. Now, over top of your major chord in A form is the pentatonic form. And that gives us a really cool little riffing square, really. So you have your 3-5, 3-5, and you can use any sort of lick or riff. You can even use chromatics. So lots of different options, but it really makes for a nice little riffing platform. So that's what we're using. So we're going to go. Okay, I'll play it one more time. Okay, so we're using 2 concepts in that first measure. Then what we're going to do is we're going to slide our C to a G chord, and we're going to be using that up on 10th and 12th. Okay, so again using an alternate voicing up high, and we're going to use the exact same concept. It's the same chord, which means the same pentatonic form lies underneath it or over top of it, however you want to think that. Okay, so very, very similar. Okay, then we're going to use an A minor bar chord. Okay, this is an E form on 5th fret. Okay, and then we're going to use a little chromatic lick. Play it one more time. Okay, so far we have. Okay, and then we're going to end with our F, which in our basic progression, just played as a bar chord, but you could play it like that or whatever kind of voicing you want. But we're going to, again, take that and play it as an A form bar chord. And then we're going to invert it. Remember how we were practicing that one for example number 2? Okay, and then we're going to go. Okay, so we're going to start on our inside strings, barred. And then just take that same type lick and move it up 1 string. Okay, so that's a great little thing to practice. Let's play the whole thing nice and slow. So these concepts work really well when mixed with other instruments. So if you had a rhythm player or an acoustic guitar player who is just playing the basic chords, and then the electric guitar player, could use some of these inversions, some of these alternate voicings, some of these melodic ideas over top of the chords to create some really interesting soundscapes, and so that, each guitar isn't just doubling up and playing the exact same part. So use some of these ideas in, your band scenarios or in multiple instrument scenarios. They work really, really well. Thanks so much for coming along on this lesson with me. If you guys enjoy content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit up my Patreon page for paper copies that go along with this lesson. And in a couple weeks, we'll be doing a full demo of the D'Angelico Bedford Deluxe, which is a very, very cool guitar. So we have it in the chameleon finish here, which really changes color from kind of bluesy to purpley. So very, very neat. So watch out for that one. We'll see you guys next week with some new content. Have a great week, you guys. Take care.